Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we had agreed that the committee chair would report to you, but we would have resolutions that are actionable. That the committee chair would move this House to pass resolutions under Article 110(3), which are not limited to censuring the cabinet secretaries, because the plenary was not supposed to accede to the adjournment sought by the cabinet secretary. Not even one agency was present to say anything about the requests. Mr. Speaker, the chairman should not be allowed to complete that report until the resolutions of that plenary, the committee that we were sitting, are fully here. If the clerk needs assistance, he should have sought assistance from us. But otherwise, Mr. Speaker, to continue with the report by our good friend, and he was told that he's also a businessman who is affected by these things. To continue this report as tabled by him, Mr. Speaker, is to derogate from the work that we agreed to do. I say this to you, Mr. Chairman. You must rub feathers. You must speak boldly. You must speak to Kenyans, because Kenyans don't want the sort of report I've seen in 4&1 and Citizen saying that the committee of the whole has been snubbed by the two cabinet secretaries. And Mr. Speaker, in fact, it bothered us a lot that whilst you're in the Hansard, it is reported that you asked the committee to summon the cabinet secretary. The report that went to those cabinet secretaries is an invitation. We feel belittled, Mr. Speaker, not to mention, to add insult to injury, that the statement that I raised on the fuel prices in March is still unanswered to date. Even if we have no mandate under the Constitution to censure cabinet secretaries, let us start by censuring them now. Because we have a mandate under the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, to defend the people who elected us. The fact that we have no mandate under the tax law, under 114 for money bills, is not an excuse. Senator Orengo mentioned this in the morning, that whilst it is not our mandate to pass finance laws, we are equally to blame for the problems that Kenyans are suffering. Yes. And we would not want to sit here like we are having a dinner speech wearing tuxedos to massage the truth. What the chairman is doing is massaging the truth. We will not accept. Thank you.
Senator Wetangula. Senator Maina.
Mr. Speaker,
Order, Senators. The chairman seems to be under a lot of pressure. He's even forgotten the rules.
Mr. Speaker, the chairman must be put under pressure. This is serious business. Mr. Speaker, and I want the chairman to sit and listen to us instead of engaging Senator Mutula Kilonzo. Mr. Speaker, the chairman should sit and listen to us.
There's a point of order. He's on a point of. Are you on a point of order?
Yes, I'm on a point of order.
He's on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, this morning up to the afternoon, there were more than 20 senators here. And Mr. Speaker, members spoke candidly and seriously. The distinguished senator for Busia was very candid in his presentation, and so were all other senators, Senator Orengo, Mutula, Senator Cheriot, all of us. And Mr. Speaker, when we left, we gave the chairman a clear direction that he was going to bring a statement, a report that will deal with the issue of hiking fuel prices, skyrocketing electricity bills, and above all, Mr. Speaker, the conduct of two ministers and their attitude towards this House. Mr. Speaker, it is very offensive to this House for two ministers to be invited to come to the House to deal with a matter of national crisis, and none of them turns up, not even their PSS, not even a representative to come and tender an apology as to why they were not here. One minister, in fact, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Keter, a former colleague here, simply send a message that this doesn't concern him. This is serious, Mr. Speaker. And what my good friend, the chairman, the distinguished senator for Nyeri, has read here is a total departure from what we agreed. And we had agreed, Mr. Speaker, that he brings an interim report that will trigger debate on a matter of serious national importance that is engulfing the country today. 80% of Kenyans use kerosene for their livelihoods, Mr. Speaker. And even when the economy nearly collapsed in 1991, 92, Orengo can bear witness, Mzee Moi could not let the price of kerosene go up because it is the livelihood of ordinary people. And Mr. Speaker, I want to urge, before you make your ruling, that the chairman goes back and brings a statement that will lead debate in this House if we have to shelve everything tomorrow or this afternoon. We must censure these ministers, and we must speak to this matter that is hurting Kenyans everywhere. You touch fuel, you have touched the life of each and everybody in the country, Mr. Speaker. Chairman, you have let us down, and we must tell you so. And we have a lot of regard for you, but you have done the right thing wrongly.
The Senator Orengo, then I come to you.
Mr. Speaker, I was really rushing back on account of the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole, which met this morning. Mr. Speaker, to show the significance of a Committee of the Whole and where we borrowed this procedure for purposes of the meeting this morning, it is important to know what happens when you have a Committee of the Whole. And those are found in part 22 of the standing orders. And I invite Mr. Speaker to look at it. But just to emphasize the point, when the Committee of the Whole meets, it may not adjourn until it considers fully the matter that is placed before it. And then standing order number 177, when all matters referred to a Committee of the Whole have been considered, the third person shall be directed by motion to report to the Senate. So this morning, what actually we were asking the chair, and I know Mr. Clark may be referring to the fact that the Committee of the Whole normally applies when you're dealing with bills. But I'm saying that it is not for every reason that a Committee of the Whole House sits. And it is important that the Committee of the Whole House, and I want to correct the chairman here, because I saw in that report you were saying that he's the one who convened the Committee of the Whole. You don't have powers to convene a Committee of the Whole. There's no way you can do that. You can't do it. The Committee of the Whole can only be convened on resolution of the House or by the direction of the Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, without doubt, before I come to the point, that if need be, we could even adjourn the House for 15, 20 minutes so that a proper motion or report is put before the House for discussion. This is a matter, if we leave it today without talking about it fully, then, Mr. Speaker, we will not be fulfilling our mandate to the people. Even where I was in the last 1 hour, the question that people were asking me constantly is, what are you doing about this increase of fuel and the burden that it is placing on the ordinary people? Mr. Speaker, it was said that taxation without representation is equal to tyranny. But I want to say that when people are overtaxed, it's like slavery. It is enslavement, what we are doing to the people of this country. And I urge you, Mr. Speaker, that depending on the position of the chair, or not depending on him, if it is possible to adjourn even for 20, 30 minutes, we bring a proper report with the resolutions. This is a matter we cannot discuss generally. We must discuss it with certain resolutions. And I think that's the direction we should go. And if we leave it until tomorrow, I think all the urgency would have been lost. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I take issue with the clerk who was sitting this morning, because I remember, and I want the clerk to hear this, we asked for his assistance to assist the Committee of the Whole, come out with an appropriate report on 2 issues with the resolutions. On the question of non-compliance by the Cabinet Secretary, it is actually contempt of the House, constant, repeated contempt of the House. And secondly, our resolution of the question of the increase, unnecessary, in my view, of costs of fuel and the taxations measures that have been taken. I submit that we should adjourn for a few minutes. If somebody can appropriately come up with a motion to adjourn.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 32, which states clearly that a Senate may, at any time for reasons stated, seek leave to move that the Senate do adjourn now to be able to discuss this matter in detail. Mr. Speaker, I sat here in the morning and I was perplexed as to what we are doing in this House if we cannot be able to put our foot on the ground and ensure that cabinet secretaries respect the Constitution. Article 153, Mr. Speaker, subsection 3, is very sunset as to what the cabinet secretary must do when called upon by this House. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue taking the blame when the executive, which is supposed to be able to ensure that they implement the laws that we pass in this House, continue violating them. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not want to deliberate further on this matter. I would seek that we adjourn, and I'd like to ask Senator from Kericho, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, to second. So you put the question. Put the question. Under that two. Put the question. The same under that two. Put the question.
1 second. Anyway, I second.
Order, Senator. You know, there is some order in which this thing is done. I know it's extremely important and urgent, but let's do it properly. I now propose the question, which is that the Senate do now adjourn. Okay. You know, you are supposed to debate unless there is.
No debate. No debate.
Okay, I put the question, which is that the Senate do now adjourn. As a matter of that opinion, say aye.
Aye.
As a matter of account of you, say nay. The ayes have it. For 30 minutes.
Umekuwa lost wapi?
Nilikuwa nimesafiri kidogo.
But those are recessive.
I know it was recess and then in the last week. Sema.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Take your time, kidogo, relax. So, no, just a bit. Let me. I'm coming to you. Okay, honorable senators, let me welcome you back from the adjournment. We've taken longer than we thought because there were things that were still being sorted out. And of course, we accept that sometimes flexibility is allowed, especially on a serious matter like this. So I'll now, the new supplementary order has been circulated on your gadgets. You can check. We now have a new order number 6, and I will therefore ask Senator Murkomen, you still want your point of order? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, it's kind of, you've anticipated my point of order. And my point of order, Mr. Speaker, was on adjournment of the House. You ruled that we were adjourning for 30 minutes. And if the Hansard will bear me witness, we've done more than 1 hour, 1.5 hours actually, since we adjourned. What's the time now? Almost, about, yes, Mr. Speaker, more than 1.5 hours. We adjourned for more than 1.5 hours. Mr. Speaker, the 1.5 hours would have served this House, or the 1 hour beyond the 30 minutes of adjournment, would have served us debating other very important issues as we wait for the Energy Committee to be ready. Now, Mr. Speaker, in terms of procedure and for purpose of the future, when the Speaker says we are adjourning for 30 minutes, who accounts for the, what is the status of the Senate for the remaining time, or the time between the end of the 30 minutes and the time we resume? Who is going to be held responsible for that time, Mr. Speaker, considering that the Speaker cannot also, Mr. Speaker, cannot violate his own rule, and the Speaker's ruling is taken very seriously. And if this is going to be the practice, what will stop a Speaker in future to say we are adjourning for 30 minutes and then resume the next day? Just appears the next day, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Murkomen, Distinguished Senator from Marakwet. That's why I said we have precedents. It's not every day that we do that. But we must also allow some flexibility. Like now, this is a serious matter, and we will not want to come here with something that is not properly looked at. Then we have to adjourn. So I think that flexibility is allowed, and there are precedents. So, clerk, proceed.
order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator James Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That aware that on the 15th September 2021, a statement was requested under Standing Order number 48-1 regarding the recent increase of fuel prices by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA. And whereas the Speaker of the Senate directed the Standing Committee on Energy to invite the Cabinet Secretaries of the Ministries of Petroleum and Mining and Energy to appear before the committee on Tuesday, 21st September 2021, to apprise the committee and the entire Senate on the unprecedented escalation of fuel prices in the country. And whereas the Standing Committee on Energy invited the two Cabinet Secretaries, pursuant to Article 153(3) and 4 of the Constitution, to appear before the committee on Tuesday, 21st September 2021 at 11 a.m., noting that the said Cabinet Secretaries failed to honor the invitation to attend the meeting of the committee. Cognizant of the fact that the sharp increase in fuel prices in the country has had a ripple adverse effect on the economy, leading to a rise in the cost of living and the cost of doing business on an already overburdened citizenry grappling with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, aware that this increase in fuel prices has outraged a majority of Kenyans who bear the brunt of the effects of the increase, such as high cost of transportation, high food prices, high cost of electricity, among other adverse effects on most sectors of the economy. Now, therefore, the Senate, 1, expresses its grave concern on the unprecedented increase in fuel and electricity costs and the adverse effects that these have had on the economy and livelihood of the people of Kenya. And 2, expresses its dissatisfaction with the conduct of the two Cabinet Secretaries, namely Honorable John K. Munyes, Cabinet Secretary for Petroleum and Mining, and Honorable Charles Keter, Cabinet Secretary for Energy, in failing to appear before the Senate to address these urgent issues, thereby abdicating their responsibilities as set out in Article 153, Sub-Articles 3 and 4 of the Constitution of Kenya.
Okay, distinguished senators, that was a notice of motion. And for us to be able to discuss the matter in details, I want you to take notice and we discuss it tomorrow at 2:30. I now have a communication. Okay, I had a communication to make. Honorable senators, I have a communication to make concerning breach of broadcast rules by media houses. Honorable senators, as you may recall, on Wednesday, 15 September 2021, the Senator for Murang'a County, Senator Irungu Kang'ata, CBS, MP rose on a point of order pursuant to Rule 6, 2, and 3 of the first schedule to the standing orders. Senator Kang'ata drew the attention of the Senate to the plenary proceedings of Tuesday, 14th September 2021, when he had been given the floor via video conferencing to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industrialization concerning the operations of Murang'a County creameries. Number two, in the point of order, the senator for Murang'a County informed the Senate that on that day, upon being given the floor through the Zoom video conferencing platform, there was a challenge with regard to his settings, occasioning the Speaker to rule that the senator relocates to a more appropriate location before seeking the floor again. The senator thereupon complied with the Speaker's directive and proceeded to Senate chamber and made the request for the statement from the floor of the Senate. Senator Kangata brought to the attention of the House a recording of the proceedings of the Senate, capturing the exchange between the Honorable Speaker and himself at the point at which the Speaker was trying to establish the location of the Senator before giving him an opportunity to seek the statement. Senator Kangata stated that there was in circulation a version of the recording that had been manipulated to introduce a voice-over in which an unknown person is heard stating that Senator Kangata was at Sabina Joy, a bar in Nairobi, from where he was attempting to address the Senate. The Honorable Senator complained that the manipulated recording, which had been circulated in various social media platforms and was calculated to malign him and cast him in bad light in the eyes of the public. Senator Kangata claimed that the complaint of the recording had also been aired and reported as news by 4 mainstream media houses, namely Citizen TV Digital, The Star Online Digital, K24 TV, and Kameme TV, thereby giving it undeserved legitimacy. This, the Senator alleged to be a contravention of Rule 5.3 and 6.2 and 3 of the first schedule to the standing orders on broadcasting rules. Honorable Senators, a number of senators rose in support of Senator Irungu Kangata points of order. They included Senator Kitui, Senator Enoch Wambua, MP, the Senator for Bungoma County, Senator Moses Wetangula, MP, the Senator for Makueni County, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., MP, the Senator for Wajir County, Senator Dr. Abdullahi Ali, MP, the Senator for Kericho County, Senator Aaron Choriot, MP, and the Senator for Taita Taveta County, Senator Jones Mwaruma. The Senator for Kitui observed that professional ethics on the part of the media houses required that they verify any information received to ascertain its accuracy and authenticity before publishing it as news item. The Senator further observed that the dignity of the Senate had been undermined and the Senate brought into disrepute on account of the publication of this false recording as a news item by the media houses. The Senator for Bungoma County pointed out that a number of senators who were in the House on the material day saw Senator Kangata as having been in a moving vehicle and that he shortly thereafter walked into the chamber and subsequently prosecuted the statement which he had earlier attempted while on the Zoom platform. The Senator for Bungoma also stated that those in the chamber did not hear anyone call out Sabina Joy when Senator Kangata was online platform. He called for the media houses to apologize to the Senator for Murang'a, the Speaker of the Senate, and the Senate. To apologize to the Speaker of the Senate and the Senate. The Senator for Makueni County called for the correct video recording to be released to the media houses by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in order to curtail further circulation of the offending recording. Honorable Senators, that being the first time the matter was being brought to my attention, I undertook to make a ruling on the matter today. The sum of the question on which I was called upon to rule was whether the recording in question and the manner in which it was carried by the media houses amounted to a violation of the standing orders, and if so, what action was appropriate to be taken by the Senate against the offending media houses. In making a determination on this matter, therefore, I directed the office of the clerk to submit to my office the alleged recordings, the Hansard recording in both audio and print, and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit recording for Tuesday, 14 September 2021. In addition, Honorable Senators, will recall that I was myself presiding at the time the offending recording was purportedly made, and I'm therefore also able to recollect what transpired. Honorable Senators, after going through the official records of the proceedings of Tuesday, 14 September 2021 against the recording in question, I have no difficulty in finding that the offending publication was an amateurish and poor counterfeit of the authentic recording of the proceedings of the Senate by the upper imposition of a voice-over introducing the words complained of. It is clear manipulation and misrepresentation and fabrication of the sequence of events and proceedings of the Senate held on that day. While it's lamentable that certain individuals using the anonymity of various social media platforms contrived for reasons known to themselves to produce and purvey this fabricated recording, it is unfathomable that mainstream media houses could join such a bandwagon. Honorable Senators, this is not the first time that conduct of the media houses covering parliamentary proceedings has come under scrutiny. Some honorable senators will recall that in the 10th Parliament, the Standard newspaper published a picture carried on page 6 of its crazy Monday pullout of Monday, 22nd March 2010, that became the source of the complainant. In a ruling made on 30th March 2020, the then Speaker, Honorable Kenneth Marende, observed, and I quote, "The purpose of media coverage of parliamentary proceedings as envisaged in the standing orders and broadcasting regulations and as would be reasonably expected is to relay fair and responsible presentation of parliamentary proceedings to the public." The then Speaker further noted that the spirit behind the provisions permitting media coverage of Parliament is really no more than that the public is entitled to follow the proceedings and conduct of their representatives in the legislature. Media coverage should not be used to serve any other purpose. These words ring as true today as they were then. Parliament is mandated under the Constitution at Article 118 to conduct its business in an open manner and to facilitate the involvement and participation of the public in its legislative and other businesses. It is for this reason that the standing orders at Standing Order number 239 provide for the proceedings of the Senate to be broadcasted and the rules for which such broadcasting provided for in the first schedule. Rule number 5.1 and 3 of the broadcasting rules provide that 5.1, officers of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit shall conduct themselves in a professional and impartial manner, giving a balanced, fair, and accurate account of proceedings. 5.3, recordings of Senate proceedings may not be used for purposes of political party advertising, ridicule, commercial sponsorship, or any other form of adverse publicity. Rule 6 of the broadcasting rules that specifically makes reference to external media houses states that, 2, no external media house or other person may broadcast any proceedings of the Senate except as received from the broadcast feed provided by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit or with the permission of the Speaker. 3, a media house that receives a broadcast feed from the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit shall broadcast it without any manipulation or distortion. Honorable Senators, these rules of engagement were put in place in recognition of the strategic position that the media plays in information dissemination and reaching a much wider spectrum of the public than Parliament would otherwise. The work of the media in contemplating the work of the Senate in democratic governance of the country cannot be gainsaid. The media plays a fundamental role in influencing and shaping public discourse and opinion and in building trust in public institutions. Section 35(1) of the Media Act provides that the media shall inform the public on issues of public interest and in importance in a fair, accurate, and unbiased manner, while it's distinctly isolating opinion from fact. The media, in executing its work, must keep and maintain high professional and ethical standards and shall at all times have due regard to the code of conduct set out in the second schedule to the said Act. In this specific instance, no inquiry on its veracity was sought from the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, the Office of the Clerk, or indeed the Office of the Speaker before the publication of the complaint of recording as a news item. The media and the Senate have a long-standing mutual and complementary relationship. It is worth noting that Parliament is open to the media and has always engaged the media through existing legal and institutional structures, including the Media Council of Kenya and the Editors Guild. In particular, the Media Council, which is established under the Media Council Act of 2013, is established to, among other things, promote and enhance ethical and professional standards among its journalists and media enterprises. In furtherance of this mandate, the Media Council should ensure enforcement of the standards and code of conduct of the media at all times. In the present case, honorable senators, the conduct of the media houses in publishing the fictitious and fabricated recording of the proceedings of the Senate without due diligence and appropriate verification was a clear breach of the standing orders and the rules as I have recited above. It is an abuse of the privilege and responsibility vested in the Fourth Estate to cover parliamentary proceedings. The media houses abdicated their professional ethics by rushing to air a cheap and sensational fabrication without cross-checking and verifying the facts and authenticity of the clip. In this respect, honorable senators, Rule 7 of the broadcasting rules provide that, and I quote, any person who fails to comply with these rules shall be liable to such penalty as the Senate may, on the recommendation of the Committee of Privileges, consider appropriate. Before pronouncing myself on the appropriate recourse in this matter, I wish to inform the Senate that it has come to my attention, and I am therefore able to take what is legal, in legal circles is known as judicial notice, of the fact that on Wednesday, 15th September 2021, and on Thursday, 16th September 2021, the Star Online Digital, Citizen Digital, K24 TV, and Kameme TV either pulled down and or apologized to Senator Irungu Kangata and the Senate for the complaint of recording. These media houses acknowledged that they had aired a manipulated video and went ahead to broadcast the correct version of the proceedings. These are acts of contrition, and I will take them into account as mitigating factors. The apology and retraction by the media houses was the right decision under the circumstances. In my view, the apologies rendered constitute an admission of guilt and make it unnecessary for me to refer this matter to the Committee of Privileges for its consideration and recommendation in the manner contemplated in Rule 7.1 of the Broadcasting Rules. In this case, the facts are no longer in dispute, and a further inquiry and escalation of the matter may not be a productive use of limited parliamentary time and may not even be in the public interest. That said, it needs to be noted that the conduct of the media houses in breaching the rules on broadcasting was serious and should be treated as such. This conduct is particularly worrying and must be nipped in the bud, coming as it does at the advent of the electioneering season. At this time, more than any other, the media needs to act with utmost circumspection and caution, lest careers are destroyed, institutions are debased, and even the whole country is endangered on account of lapses of professional judgment. Taking all the relevant factors into consideration, including the apology and retraction I have referred to earlier, I consider it appropriate that a reprimand issues to the 4 media houses for contravening of Rule 5 and 6 of the broadcasting rules. Accordingly, the following media houses are reprimanded and cautioned that a repeat of the offending conduct will invite more severe action. They are A, the Star Online Digital, B, Citizen Digital, C, K24 TV, D, Kameme TV. Let me conclude by calling on media houses and indeed all persons, including bloggers and other commentators on social media and other public spaces, to exercise caution and utmost responsibility in reporting on parliamentary proceedings. The democratic process will not be served by falsely and maliciously reducing the legislature, which is the apex representative of the sovereignty of the people, into an object of scandal and ridicule. I thank you. What's your point of order, Senator Lekina?
Mr. Speaker, I've been troubled as a member of this the Energy Committee, and I know the communication you gave is quite in order, that media houses should respect this House and also the responsibility that they should carry. But as I sit here, I'll be lying to myself, Mr. Speaker, that I'm comfortable with the direction that you gave. And it actually confused me, because when we left this House, we were expecting my chair, my good chair, to be able to prepare a report and table here. But when we got back, we got Senator Ephraim Maina. When we got back here, minority leader tabled a notice of motion to discuss a very important matter. These two characters, the two cabinet secretaries who were supposed to appear before this House today, is what we are going to discuss here this afternoon. And I am just not comfortable with the fact that we are now going to make it a debate, and I'm not so sure what that debate will result to, yet we've not completed the work that we're supposed to do. Mr. Speaker, this issue really bothers me. It also makes me now realize and support everyone who talks about a system which is mixed, where cabinet secretaries sit here so that they can become accountable. These characters, Muñez and what is the other name? And Keter, are making a mockery of this House, Mr. Speaker. And for us to just fold and say, okay, we clap for them, we discuss other issues in terms of how the media behaves, really makes us also unaccountable. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you can, just let me finish. I'm not mixing things. I know what I'm talking about. The problem that I have is that we have a task that we're supposed to complete as the Energy Committee. That task, you gave a direction. Now we have a notice of motion to come and discuss the contact of these people tomorrow. What happened to the issue of fuel prices? Does that change? Will it change tomorrow once we have it as a discussion? What should we be doing this afternoon, Mr. Speaker? This is what is bothering me, because when I leave this House, I don't want to be also unaccountable like those cabinet secretaries.
What's your okay, as a point of order, then, Senator?
Mr. Speaker, had Senator Ledamo Lekina, is Senator Ledamo Lekina, Mr. Speaker, to mislead the public that the motion brought by Senator Orengo discusses merely cabinet secretaries. To the contrary, Mr. Speaker, the motion puts precedence on the question of discussing grave concern on the unprecedented increase in fuel and electricity cost and the adverse effects that they have had on the economy and livelihoods on the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, that is the first issue we are debating tomorrow, before even we discuss anything about cabinet secretary. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when a motion has been brought to this House, like the one minority leader has brought, if there are things a member of this House wants to add to that motion, Mr. Speaker, you can amend the motion and improve it tomorrow. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, my colleague took his time to look at this issue. And in fact, I find it, Mr. Speaker, misleading that he is trying to refer to your ruling, which was on a different matter, on the media issue, which we have rested, and convolute it with the discussion tomorrow on this very important motion. If there is something that he wants to add, Mr. Speaker, nothing stops him tomorrow from amending the motion.
There's a lead of majority. Just a minute. No, you don't have to respond. Let not become a... Order, Senator Ledama.
Speaker, I want to join you in congratulating yourself and the ruling. You can congratulate yourself. Let me use this opportunity to congratulate you, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding what the Senator is raising, because the matter, that point of order should have been following your ruling, not a point of order on a matter which has been passed. Because it was already you're already in another order. So you could not be raising a point of order on an order which was 2 days ago. I think that you are invited, Senator Olekina, to know that the Speaker's ruling is the matter which is current. And that's what we should be discussing. That's what we should be discussing. You raise a point of order on that matter. And if the Speaker is making a ruling, there will be nothing out of order. So I'm just saying this because I want to congratulate the Speaker on the matter that he raised on the media. The matter of prices of fuel will come tomorrow. But on the media reporting, which was misleading and causing problem to a member of this House is the issue we should be talking about, so that we can raise the matter of order. The matter of our friend Kangata, who was misrepresented. Kangata was misrepresented. The media raised issues about Kangata, and the Speaker has made a ruling. So mine is to support the Speaker on the matter and say this for sure. When I was in the Ministry of Information, I did create something called the Media Council. The Media Council is responsible for the rules that bind the media. The rules that bind the media means that they cannot misreport, just as I heard Honorable Wetangula speak. When I heard, he said this. He said that even if Kangata had a problem with anybody, we will defend him when it comes to being misrepresented, and being misreported. I am here to say this as your friend. My business is to defend a member of this House at any cost. So let's defend each other. Speaker, you have raised the matter, and I think that I've seen that media houses have apologized. I know some media houses have apologized, some have not. Some of the people who started this matter need to apologize. I agree with you that you don't have to pursue it any further than that. They have been warned, and let us have a member of this House respected, whatever his status. So mine is to just say we have a situation in our hands, Mr. Speaker, that this House needs to be respected by the media. I want to come down to the matter present. On the fuel, tomorrow is a fasting on the order paper. Speaker, we get a good time, a prime time tomorrow when the media is on, when we are live coverage. That's the moment when we can discuss this matter. For today, let us finish business of the order of the day. Tomorrow at 2:30, we are able then to proceed with the proceeding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutula Jr.
Allow me, Speaker, to raise the two issues that majority has spoken about. Senator Kangata was not misrepresented. Senator Kangata was defamed. It's not the same thing. Now I'm speaking like a lawyer, and listen. This, even when you withdraw an offending video from a platform, that video is circulated. And Senator Kangata has been defamed. Don't say, and don't caveat him, because he has a right, and I've represented so many people, he has a right to seek remedy, civil remedy, for the damage to his reputation. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I thought that
electricity and the misconduct of the two cabinet ministers in snubbing the Senate. So we shouldn't flog that issue anymore. In fact, we're out of order if we debate that notice of motion. The second one, Mr. Speaker, is to join you in the ruling not there. And as we do that, Mr. Speaker, many people have been asking whether when we have a Zoom platform in our debates, strangers are also hooking in. Because it does appear that there could be infiltration by strangers. And the Office of the Clerk needs to check the provider of that platform to see that it is not infiltrable. It is a closed circuit. If it's a Senate proceeding, there's no stranger who can come here and talk while proceedings are going on. And if a stranger out there can infiltrate and utter unprintable words about a senator, it is wrong. And media houses who carried those reports, Mr. Speaker, at least I saw one or two media houses immediately after the matter was raised, tendered an apology and played the correct version. I want to encourage those that didn't to take the cue from those who did and do the same thing. And then it's always good to let the chips lie where they fell so that we can proceed to deal with more important national issues that we will debate tomorrow. I want to encourage my brother, Senator Maina, as I see it, Mr. Speaker, that Shakespeare said, "Uneasy is the head that wears the crown." Once they have put a crown on your head, you must be ready to be stoned, to be besmirched, to be slighted, sometimes even abused, sometimes even flogged, because you are a leader. So don't have a short fuse as a chair of the committee. Just take everything in the stride. And some members will attack you because they're frustrated, others because they don't like you, others because you are in a position they would wish to be. So just take it in the stride. We will continue telling you that this morning you acted incompetently. And this doesn't mean I hate you. It's because it is true. And we must be ready to take this criticism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Senator Orengo, you still want to lead on?
I think we had passed this order as rightly put by Senator Murkomen and Senator Wetangula. But I want to beseech the House. We are a house of record. And I want to give an example of when J.M. Kariuki was murdered. The matter was raised in the House, but because they needed to put on record material which would then move the appropriate authorities to take some action, they came by way of a motion after the matter had been raised informally. Now, I have heard a lot of what people have said. The Senator for Nandi, for example, was talking about the price of fuel in other jurisdictions. That is a very important material that we should put before the House when we're having a debate on this matter. So it's good that people have noticed, and instead of just talking, we have some material we place before the House during that debate, instead of just having a general debate. I think we need to put some material before the House on the two issues. I think the work of the committee will go on. The committee still sees of the matter. But there are two things which have arisen: the contempt by the cabinet secretaries, on which we need a resolution, and in order to get there, we must have some material. We must give some history of what happened before. And secondly, on the question of what the country is feeling now, Senator Sakaja was touring Nairobi, and it was a live issue wherever he was going. So I think that when we're debating this matter, it's not just for any member just to stand up for 2 minutes and begin to say, oh, the people are suffering. People are suffering. If you go out there, they will tell you they are suffering. But we need to put some material as we debate, so that when we make a resolution, there will be some record that we had a justification in bringing this motion forward. So I plead with the House, and particularly Senator Mutula, in this one there's no question of cowardice. Cowards will see when we are voting, not when we are proposing the motion. That will come another time. But I can assure you on my part, I'll turn up to move the motion when it's called tomorrow. And I'm assured it is there tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, in order to make sure that we have no doubt about this matter, I think there should be a House Business Committee meeting, if you can call it, so that it is indeed the first business tomorrow, so that no member of Parliament or Senate should be told that you are going to speak for 2 minutes. I think that everybody should speak for a minimum of 10 minutes on this matter. Minimum. Everybody. But if you start now, for example, Mr. Speaker, if I start now, I intend to take 1.5 hours. I intend. Because I have material, especially on this issue of contempt by cabinet secretaries. And we want to demonstrate what happens in other parliaments when cabinet ministers don't appear in parliament, and it is put on record. For example, the other example I wanted to give, for example, in when some cabinet secretaries refused to appear before a judge, the judge said, I can't order policemen to arrest them, but I have one tool. I have one tool, which he used. And the cabinet ministers had to obey because they knew the consequences. So tomorrow we also talk about what tools do we have. Yes. But if you are just talking now, I mean, it'd be just a baraza. We don't want to be a baraza. Thank you, Mr.
I can see some intervention, but please let us not discuss the notice of motion because it's coming out of the motion, because it's coming up tomorrow. Senator Sakaja.
You've noticed. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I know this is not the most ideal way that we'd have wanted to deal with this issue. Because, Mr. Speaker, of course, I understand the wisdom and the need to have this censure motion. But remember, Mr. Speaker, you directed that these cabinet secretaries appear so that, Mr. Speaker, on top of expressing concern, which is what we're going to do, Kenyans have expressed concern about the fuel prices. What we wanted to do is to get a solution for Kenyans. That's the intention. So, Mr. Speaker, I will urge that you further direct that those cabinet secretaries still appear whenever it is. They still have to come. The matter is not away from the committee. Because now the committee might imagine that since we have a motion tomorrow, that their work is done. So, Mr. Speaker, you still need to further direct that they appear, in fact, now that they are summoned, to appear, to answer, because what Kenyans want, and Senator Orengo has said it rightly, the other day in Korogosho, in Kariobangi, everyone was expressing that concern. But what they expect from the Senate, and they have a lot of confidence and faith in this House, is a solution. And that is what we want to discuss, more than just expressing concern. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask that you direct further that the committee still holds that meeting after our motion tomorrow. If the committee, because the chairman says that they have material, that they've discussed this from March, can they furnish us with that material before the motion? Otherwise, people will just say how fuel is expensive. And then what? Kenyans want solutions, Mr. Speaker. So that is my kind plea to you.
Finally, Senator Cheriot, so that we conclude on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join the rest of my colleagues in, first of all, appreciating a very wise ruling that you've given this afternoon. It's well considered and very balanced. Many of us who are keen followers of media practice in this country will record that perhaps this is a time that our media has sunk at its lowest in terms of standard of practice, be it in its reporting of political issues or anything else that is of perhaps grave concern to the country, Mr. Speaker. I pointed out on that day when you were handling the issue of Senator Kangata, instances where media, mainstream media, and we're just not talking about bloggers here. In fact, sometimes nowadays, some of these bloggers are even more accurate than mainstream media, Mr. Speaker, and the kind of things that they are saying. Therefore, to have you give the kind of ruling that you've given, putting them and reminding them that indeed they are the fourth estate, outside of the third, one of the three, which is Parliament. That the country, media plays a very important role in terms of forming the psyche and how you build up a nation, how you emerge even to be a respectable democracy. But the kind of things that we are seeing nowadays, that's why on that day, Mr. Speaker, I had requested, I know there are still ways through which I can achieve my request, because my request at that particular time was to have members of the ICT committee have a seat with Media Council of Kenya and ask them about the proliferation of fake news in our country, Mr. Speaker, and how it's becoming a common practice. Is it for want of sufficient laws to put many of these media houses to good check? Or maybe there's something that we can do as a house to encourage or have them, so that we just have media do the right thing, report what is factual, be unbiased, be professional. It's not too much to ask, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, thank you so much for that particular ruling. I guess those who are keen followers of media like Senator Wambua and maybe a few others, we can still caucus and find a way through which we can get that exercise be done by this House, because I believe it's something we need to do as a House. Finally, Speaker, just to mention...
Let's consult in low tones, senators, distinguished senators.
Finally, Mr. Speaker, on this particular issue, because everybody has made a comment, allow me to just make mine as well, that I'm quite clear in my head what we want to achieve out of this exercise. During the Kamkunji, when we took a break, Mr. Speaker, many of us said that if this House can rise up to the occasion and solve this issue of fuel, electricity, and the debt crisis, then we can close this House and say we have lived our purpose in terms of what we needed to do and rise up to the challenges that we are facing as a nation. I know we've had a distraction in the absence of, in the failure by the ministers to appear before us, Mr. Speaker, but I believe tomorrow when we speak, first of all, Mr. Speaker, in fact, you need to direct that all members of Energy Committee, including my good friend Senator Ledama, should be here with pen and paper and record the comments and the concerns of members, so that when they interact and they engage with these particular ministers, if we are invited again, because you had accorded us that opportunity to come as members of the House, we'll be asking these questions, because tomorrow is just to express, first, our displeasure, but second and most importantly, to frame the questions that we expect these people, when they appear before the Houses of Parliament, they'll be addressing in terms of the concerns that Kenyans have with regards to the cost of fuel and the cost of power, because it's something that has concerned all of us. So I don't feel anything is lost. We shall be caucusing, making our thoughts known, but still we know that the bullseye, Mr. Speaker, is until we bring the cost of fuel down and the cost of the electricity down. If we achieve that, Mr. Speaker, we are good to go and we'll have served our purpose as a House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Senator James Orengo. Let's consult in low tones. Senator
Mr.
Cherargei.
Speaker, is it in order when Honorable Cherioti is making a very important point? Honorable Cherargei is on his feet throughout and engaging two senators when Honorable Cherioti is making very important submissions. In fact, I've noticed whenever Honorable Cherargei is speaking, Honorable Senator Aaron Cherioti is always dead quiet. So I don't know what he has against the senator for Kericho. That as soon as you start speaking, that is when he feels that he must talk to somebody. I think he must be told. No, it can't be a border issue. And he cannot be bonding. Unless he's family in bed with somebody. No, that was discussion from the Kamkunji. But I just thought that, sometimes when there are rules in the House, it is good to obey those rules. And Senator Cherargei was on his feet throughout and talking. Even Senator Murkomen, who started listening, was drawn away by Senator Cherargei. And I think that was not right.
I think Senator, leader of my minority, is raising a very pregnant point, I would say. I would expect that we conduct ourselves, within the laws and the rules of this House. It's important to listen to what is going on. That's how we make informed decisions. Because sometimes, you don't listen, then you wake up and say something that has already been said by somebody else. So let us try to observe our rules. I think on that matter, then we want to conclude. Like I gave direction tomorrow, we will have all the time to discuss it. As for the committee, I think you continue because even the cabinet ministers gave some time frame, and time is not a strategy. It will come, and they will obviously appear. So next order. Senator Wambua, what's it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had sought your permission to make a comment on your ruling relating to the offending broadcast against Senator Kangata. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that your ruling, really, Mr. Speaker, was really reasonable, not punitive, and that you have given the right direction on this matter. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the Senate Standing Committee on ICT, and as Senator Cheriot has pointed out, it will be important for this committee to have a serious special meeting with stakeholders in the media industry, especially the Media Council of Kenya, the Editors Guild, and the Media Owners Association, to address ourselves to the question of how does mainstream media houses, how do they react and operate within an environment where there is so much pressure from alternative media. The Speaker, having said that, I also want to take this opportunity and say that, Mr. Speaker, maybe a time has come for us as a Senate to also ask ourselves a very candid question. The question of the safety of the online applications that we are using ourselves to transact official Senate business. The Speaker, I say that because when we said we're going to have online meetings for the Senate, I thought the decision was that the Senate was going to procure a system that was almost tamper-proof with sufficient firewalls around it to ensure that we are not easily infiltrated. Mr. Speaker, I'm not very sure, I'm not certain that Zoom would provide that solution to us. So, Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, we should also be asking ourselves whether we can do better in terms of the online platform that we want to use to carry out hybrid Senate transactions. Mr. Speaker, I rest my case.
Okay, Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, I think the rules that apply to this House, rightly captured by yourself, are particularly different from the ones that refer to a general discussion by media house on our performance as leaders, even outside there. The question of defamation of Senator Kangata, from the context of which you issued a statement, your part of this statement is not to defend, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kangata from defamation. Yours is to protect the integrity of the House. And reading from your statement, you focused more on protecting the integrity of the proceedings that emanate from this House. Because Hansard is a very important source of information for many years down the line. Now, those who distorted that clip, Mr. Speaker, are one part of this conversation, but the other part of the conversation is those who shared. Now, Mr. Speaker, what is not captured in your report is what the relevant government agencies are going to do to establish, Mr. Speaker, the source of this distorted clip. Because, Mr. Speaker, that is very important because this can be repeated again and again. And before, even personally, I was not in the chambers, and I thought, from the way it was distorted, I thought maybe there's a colleague in the chambers who shouted, until I found the real record of the Senate proceedings. And I'm a senator, Mr. Speaker. What about now the general members of public? Mr. Speaker, I thought in your further observance of this matter, the DCI this Senate and the Speaker should be able to write to the investigative agency, and for this matter, for criminal purposes, is the Director of Criminal Investigations, to establish the source of this distorted clip. Because, Mr. Speaker, there is a criminal culpability that can be found, Mr. Speaker, on this particular clip, based on the Data Act, the act itself that deals with matters data, but also even the Media Act. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request your office to take it further, beyond just protecting and informing the public about the authenticity of the statement of Senator Kangata, but also what is the criminal culpability and how do you bring the people who worked on this statement into account. The last thing I'd like to say is that the integrity of our media houses, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, there's a competition in our media house to be the first ones to share what appears to be sexy news, sensational, if I may use that word, Mr. Speaker. And in this situation, this thing was looking very attractive and sensational, and you would find respectable media houses that all of us respect were the first ones to share. Mr. Speaker, a warning should go to the media houses to go back to the traditional required standards of media practice of verifying information. And this applies not just to news like the ones for Senator Kangata, but even sometimes announce somebody's death, Mr. Speaker, declaring as many people as they have died, especially when you are holding a public office, and they have no recourse, Mr. Speaker, to a person or a family member who has, Mr. Speaker, suffered because of receiving that news, such news, Mr. Speaker, that your loved one has died, only to find that, Mr. Speaker, it was fake news. I think these are some of the things that our media house must be able to deal with, some through the law, but some maybe we need to engage media editors the way we've done before for them to appreciate that integrity is more important than being sensational. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Omogeni, as we conclude that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to fortify what my learned colleague, Senator Murkomen, has submitted before you this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, about 3 years ago, this country enacted a law, the Computer and Cyber Crimes Act, that was specifically meant to deal with this kind of offenses. Yeah? And Mr. Speaker, you see the point being made by Senator Murkomen is that there is a criminal somewhere who is the author of this video that has been circulating. And unless the police are able to trace and track down that particular person, somebody else will do it tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, because you can go after the media houses, but what about these unscrupulous characters out there who are waiting for any opportunity to manipulate proceedings of this House and even other entities? Mr. Speaker, take into account that even cases are being heard online. So I think, Mr. Speaker, the point that we request the House to do is that we need to direct the Director of Criminal Investigations, Mr. Speaker, to conduct thorough investigations. And if the author of this video, I wouldn't worry so much about the people who circulated, but the author of this video is arrested and action is taken. Remember, Mr. Speaker, this video has circulated all over. Some of us saw it miles away from this country, and if we leave it to go, we will not have deterred the person who was behind it. So we should, of course, rain down on the media houses. But I think the person that this House should go after is the person who authored the video. Because there was malice. You can clearly see that it was done with a malicious intent. It was not done in good faith. Somebody somewhere wanted to damage the character of Senator Kangata. So I really plead with you that you reconsider your statement and request that the CIDs do investigations and the culprit, the author of that video, is brought to book and action is taken against him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. I think that has been noted. We'll make a follow-up so that we establish. I agree with what Senator Murkomen has said and what you have said, that we've had even, I agree with Senator Murkomen, we've had media kill people, say you have died when you are still alive. And then they apologize, but you see the damage is done. So this will get to the bottom of it and get to know where it came from. So we go to the statements now, and the first one is by Senator Johnson Sakaja.
Order number 7, statements.
Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 47-1, I rise to make a statement on the status of the new Dandora Stadium in Nairobi City County. Mr. Speaker, the Dandora Stadium has for many years been a community stadium where young people in Nairobi have engaged, and many who have had sterling careers in soccer and other sporting activities have seen and considered it home. The stadium is in Embakasi North constituency, and the new stadium, Mr. Speaker, was commissioned in 2018 by the county government of Nairobi, and it was to be completed in 24 months. However, Mr. Speaker, up to date, the stadium is yet to be complete. This project included turf, seats, a gym center, modern stalls, floodlights, Mr. Speaker, as well as other facilities. The project has been marred by controversies in its procurement process and allegations of poor workmanship by the contractor who was awarded this contract, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the delay in completion of this facility has been a great disservice to thousands of talented young people who had hopes that it will be used to them in enhancing their talent, especially in sports. Mr. Speaker, for those who may know the area of Dandora, due to the closure of this stadium, Mr. Speaker, there are many young people who I know who have gone back to a life of crime, and some even, Mr. Speaker, have lost their lives through the police. This delay has been occasioned partly by the ongoing investigations on which procurement irregularities were mentioned by the EACC. And of course, the EACC have also said that they have not stalled it. Mr. Speaker, in February, the President of the Republic directed that the ongoing works, of which only maybe 15 to 20% was left, be completed within a matter of weeks. But that did not happen. Mr. Speaker, I took time, I spoke to the Director General of NMS, I've spoken to the Nairobi County Acting Governor. They have all given lip service because the young people of Dandora were going to storm this stadium and open it for themselves because they are happy with the work so far. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to give information to this House that we will be, due to this, inviting the Director General of the NMS and the Acting Governor of Nairobi City County to summon them to give a full status report on the progress made towards completion of this project, the cost incurred, and when this stadium will be opened. The people of Dandora cannot wait any much longer for the opening of this stadium, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Of course, I cannot request this statement to be given to my committee because I chair the Labour and Social Welfare Committee, and that is why I'm informing the House of the actions we'll take. We have given them the time, and I think there's no more time to give them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Sakaja. The next statement by Senator Millicent Omanga. She's not there. The next statement by Senator Johnson Sakaja.
one is for another committee. Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on the status of the water boreholes that had been installed, or rather have been installed by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services all across Nairobi City County. Mr. Speaker, there have been concerns by residents of Nairobi, especially in the informal sector, that majority of the boreholes that were sunk and that were launched with a lot of pomp and pageantry in the last 24 months are no longer functional and therefore not serving the intended purpose of alleviating water shortage, especially in the informal settlements. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would therefore like to request that the chairperson, in his detailed response, to address the following. Number one, to give a report on the functional status of all the boreholes that were sunk by the NMS and the cost incurred. Number two, to give a report on the quality of the water from these boreholes and if the water is still fit for human consumption for each and every one of those boreholes. And finally, to clarify on the alleged issue, because I've received allegations from Nairobians that some of these water points and boreholes have been taken over by unknown individuals and institutions who are now charging the residents access to the water, whereas the entire plan, from the time it was planned during COVID, was to have Nairobi residents access this water for free. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The statement is committed to the Committee of Standing Committee of Land, Environment and Natural Resources. Next statement by Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I read my statement, kindly allow me to congratulate you that you are a member of the Speaker's panel and wish you well and hope you will guide this House through Solomonic decisions and wisdom when called upon, and wish you the best. We are proud that you are now a member of Speaker's panel, and I think, Mr. Speaker, it allows all of us to grow and learn rules and procedure of the House. And we hope in future, since you have mastery of Kiswahili language, we hope in the near future you will be guiding the House through the Kiswahili language, and wish you well. Mr. Speaker, request for statement, malpractices by players. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I picked the wrong statement, kindly. I think I am excited by you being on the Speaker's seat until I disorganize the statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Give him the correct statement.
Request for statement on the delay by the Kenya School of Law in processing students who have completed training for gazettemen. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 48.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights on the delay by the Kenya School of Law in processing students from all over the country who have completed training for gazettemen. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should state, one, state why the names of over 900 students who completed training at the Kenya School of Law in August 2021 have not been forwarded to the Council for Legal Education or CLE for gazettemen. Two, Mr. Speaker, explain why there is lack of coordination between the Kenya School of Law, KSL, and the Council for Legal Education, CLE, to ensure students are gazetted on time, since there is no timeline on the same legally or through a policy. So, Speaker, sir, the third one, state why the Council for Legal Education released General Notice number 13 of 2021, indicating that the gazettement of qualified candidates would only be done in the months of March, June, September, and December, but without any adherence so far after issuing that gazette notice. And finally, Mr. Speaker, provide a comprehensive report from Kenya School of Law indicating the number of students who have completed training in 2021 and before, and their names forwarded for gazettement through Kenya Gazette, as well as those who have completed, but the names have not been forwarded, stating the reasons for the failure to forward those names. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. The statement stand committed to the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights. Next order.
Order number 8, the Disaster Risk Management Bill, Senate Bills number 14 of 2021, second reading.
Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja, you had 33 minutes to speak on that bill.
33 left?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I began moving this bill, but allow me to also congratulate you for assuming the chair. Incidentally, and I think it's a coincidence, that also, I think you got to the chair when I was speaking. Senator Isaac Mwaura also, the first time when he joined the panel, he first sat on the chair when I was on the floor. So there is probably a blessing that comes when I'm on the floor, and you should be inviting me more often when I make a request. But congratulations. I know you're up to the task. We know you've been in that position before, and we hope that you will continue being objective as you guide this House in its deliberations. Also, Mr. Speaker, allow me to inform the House, because I know we've been talking about the matter of cabinet secretaries, that tomorrow the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury, together with the Cabinet Secretary of Labor and Social Protection, will be attending the Committee of Labor at 10 a.m. on the matter of the one-off honorarium to former councillors. That is a matter that is also close to your heart and close to many members' hearts in terms of how it is to be dealt with. I will share the credentials on the official page of the Senate for members, to those who are available, to be able to join. Mr. Speaker, this disaster risk management bill is extremely important. And as I mentioned last week, this is a bill whose process had begun. We had actually passed it as the Senate, together with the co-sponsor, Senator Mutula. However, it went through, the plight of all these other bills that had to be republished due to the ruling of the court in our favor as the Senate. So this is the second time we're discussing this. But in that same spate of time, Mr. Speaker, our friends in the other house also took liberty to publish, to copy-paste, to plagiarize our bill. The ministry also had tried to plagiarize our bill, and it is ongoing as well in the other house, but we will stick our guns to this because this bill has come from a lot of discussions, a lot of research and experiences that we've gone through. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, there was a fire in Ofafa Jericho school, secondary school. 5 students, as we speak, were taken to Metropolitan Hospital for checkup after inhaling these fumes. It started at 6:45 p.m., the fire. The first response was an NMS fire engine at 7:50 p.m., Mr. Speaker. That is an hour. The fire was put off by the students. The truck did not have to do anything. The students themselves had to get buckets and put off the fire. There was no firefighting equipment in that school. The nearest fire station, Mr. Speaker, could not serve these students. So the school has been closed. There's been loss of a lot of facilities, I think 11 sections of the dormitories. There's been loss of property. We are glad, Mr. Speaker, that there's been no loss of life. And we wish those who've been injured a quick recovery. Personal effects of around 22 boys were completely burnt. And of course, you know how these things go. I'll have to start coming around to you to give me something to take to them. Mr. Speaker, that is what we're trying to address in this bill. Just a few weeks ago, it was Gikomba. And there have been so many fires in Gikomba that personally, as the senator for Nairobi, I have stopped going at the response of a fire. Because, Mr. Speaker, even the public think we enjoy when there's a fire, we come and look like heroes when a fire has occurred. And yet if you don't go, they will say you don't care. These things put us at such awkward positions. And I'm glad in some of these incidences, well-wishers have helped. When there was the last one in Kamkunji, the CS Interior and the SPS Kibisho, I really pushed them and they gave me resources. We gave those who are victims. In Gikomba as well, I was not able to go, but I quickly called Honorable Yusuf and we got some resources. But it cannot be about who you can call and what you can go and do in the case of the fire or in a case of any other disaster. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to create a legal framework that then will be able to address such disasters. From the early warning signals to the disaster mitigation to making sure that we've trained people. How would these young people know what to do in case of a fire in their school? How would my people in Kibagare, a few weeks ago, I had also another fire there. Fortunately, a young man, a very good coordinator of mine called Sean, called me, and I was able to get through to the city, the county government, and in less than 15 minutes, the fire engines were there, and this time they had water. Many times, you will call them and they come without water, as if they're coming to watch the fire as well. Mr. Speaker, the way disaster has been managed and disaster risk has been managed in this country has been a disaster. Now, if counties like Nairobi, with more resources than most counties, have these challenges, what about other counties? What about Bomet or Laikipia or Makueni? So what we have done, Mr. Speaker, and what we're proposing, number one is coordination from the national level and the county level. That coordination must be done. There's need to have a single authority at the national level that deals with disaster. A few years ago, I think that must have been 2015 or 2016, I remember spending 3 nights at Huruma when a building collapsed. Huruma, where the building had collapsed, is just a few meters from the NYS headquarters. But no one was able to come at that time because of the protocol. So throughout the night, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank again my friends who came through, because all I had done was to buy milk and bread and load it in my car and went there and say, okay, what do we need to do? And these are young people of Mathare, the young people from Gay Ward, I remember, who are the ones who came together. I was able to organize them, and we at least rescued some people. But it was so sad. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine the machine, the tool that was used to cut the steel bars in a collapsed building, I had to purchase from a hardware store. Yet there were officers just looking. And I really pity the officers because there's nothing they can do themselves. The milk and the bread for those people. Carrying 21 bodies on the third day of children who could have been rescued on the first day if there was proper disaster risk management was the most painful part. There have been incidences, and I know I've shared this with my co-sponsor, Senator Mutula, where the site of the incident, at the site of the disaster, you have 3 government agencies staring at each other in the eyes. You have the NDMA, you have the NDOC, and the NDMU. They're looking at each other. There's no single command. And if anybody has dealt with disaster risk, you know that the first few minutes are the most critical. That is when you save lives. That is when you save property. So what we're doing, we're not creating a new entity. This entity is bringing them together. Because, people have complained, and it's true, we have too many agencies in this country. We don't want to create many more. But we are bringing them together with the resources they have under a single command at the national level. Then at the county level, there should also be the county disaster risk management committees, which bring as well county government together with the national government. Because I can imagine, if that happens, I've seen in my city, if it happens, the county government is doing one thing, the county commissioner or the regional commissioner for the case of Nairobi is doing the complete opposite thing. And we end up losing a lot of precious time to deal with these disasters. So the NDOC, and we put those transitional provisions, how the staff of the National Disaster Operations Center, the National Disaster Management Unit, and the Department of Special Programs will now come together under this authority to be able to work together and to have resources. There are many times I've had to, and I don't know how it works with other counties, You know, when we've had disasters, and I have disasters in Nairobi a lot, sadly. You have to call a certain individual who sits at the stores to give you maize and beans from government. If you're in the good books of government, you might get. If you're not, they will not give you. And it's not for you. I'm not going to eat all that maize. I'm taking it to my people in the slum. When I ask for Mabati, where people have lost their structures, it's not for me. So that subjective way of dealing with disaster is what must stop. That this Department of Special Programs, where there have been, sometimes somebody has been changed, okay, this one is good, he will help me. Then somebody else comes, he will not. It's not us. And I'd like to tell them, it's not us you help. You know, the CSs, PSs, you must know, when a senator comes to your office, I'm not coming for my interest. I'm representing the people of Nairobi, those people who've been affected by disaster. 2 weeks ago, we had a disaster in Kawangware, in Gatina. And it had to be individuals. I saw His Excellency Musalia going to take things. I have sent things myself. Now all the aspirants, the MC aspirants are asking me to give them things to take. We must divorce disaster from politics. It cannot be that we dance on the graves of Kenyans or on their misfortune. And that is why the best solution, I think this is one of the bills that will really make a mark if we pass it. That unsustainable way of dealing with disasters that we've been dealing with, that becomes a photo opportunity for politicians, changes. We used to have fire hydrants in Nairobi, all over our estates and in town. Now they're just people, I'm sure even the young people don't know what those are, because they've not seen them working, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to have that coordination. And there are many types of disasters, even terrorist activity sometimes, they create a disaster. I remember very well, and I'm repeating this, during the Westgate attack. At that time, I used to be the patron of the National Gun Owners Association, GAO. And this association is of many men and women who are heroes, gallant men and women, including our colleague, Senator Haji, because he was one of those first responders who went as a civilian. But you know, because it was a Saturday, and normally on Saturday we train. These days we train in our own range, but we used to train that time with the GSU at, in Ruiru, exit 13, I think. Mr. Speaker, when word came out that this attack has happened, the civilians were able to leave and go to Westgate, but the officers had to wait for orders to come from one level to another, and they came late because of that. There was no ability to quickly respond. And unfortunately, a good friend of ours, because now GSU was able to come, police came, and the military came. One of our friends from the GSU was killed by the military because of lack of a coordinated response when there's a disaster. And may God rest his soul in peace. Yeah? Munene. May God rest his soul in peace. This intends to sort out such issues. That we know we have early warning signals. We can't every year be going to Budalangi to give money and solutions for floods, and we know there'll be floods even this year. We can't always be knowing, taking resources to Huruma and Mathare, because, Mr. Speaker, every month there's a fire in Mathare, we know. There's an issue of, and so you see, if you're mitigating these things, you know what is the cause of that disaster. So the cause there, for instance, of those fires is electric faults. I have tried with the former leadership, now KPLC has had too many changes, but I was trying with the former CEO to come and let them have safe, cheap electricity for the slum. Because if you're charging them the same tariffs you're charging us, they have illegal connections. And those illegal connections are what causes a lot of the fires, Mr. Speaker. This market that we always go to, the fires are caused by 3 reasons, majorly. The first one, of course, is a group of people who claim they have a title deed to Gikomba, the 12 acres, and we said it's a public land, there's no title. That if I ban this area, I'll get people to move. The second, Mr. Speaker, of course, is the electric faults and accidents. There are the ladies who are my very good friends who cook githeri overnight. And so sometimes as it's cooking overnight unattended, accidents can happen because you also have street boys who are basking, at that fire. But the third one, Mr. Speaker, some unscrupulous traders, and I always tell them, I say the truth, it's not all of them, it's a few of them, who deliberately go and set fire because of insurance. When they're running out of stock, they set fire. Mr. Speaker, those ones must also be dealt with in one way or another. So if you have an agency that is trying to mitigate this risk, they'll know why is it that this place always has a fire? And they will investigate. To date, Mr. Speaker, there has been no single DCI report on the cause of any single fire in Gikomba, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Solai, we did the report again with Senator Mutula. Before the tragedy happened, there were warnings. There was warning that this thing, the way it looks, it's going to burst its banks. The structural integrity is bad. But because, Mr. Speaker, there is no single one-stop place to go and report these things, would you go tell the CEC of Environment, or do you look for Warma? Do you look for NEMA? Do you look for the governor? Because Kenyans don't know where to report. That's why we lost all of those 47 children. Yeah? In Solai. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to make this a thing of the past. It's extremely important. Today, if there's a fire, Mr. Speaker, where you live, do you know who to call? Yeah, I think you'll call the senator for Nairobi. Because you don't know, there's no number. What is the hotline when there's a disaster in Nairobi or in Makueni? Kenyans don't know. Because there's no structure. And you know, it's really embarrassing for us to say this, that Kenyans do not know what to do if there's a terrorist attack. 9/11 was being commemorated the other day. And I saw, you know, there's a video, there's a documentary on Netflix where people are being told, okay, this is what you're actually supposed to do. Now they're doing those drills. Today, if a plane flew into a building in this city, God forbid, do you know what to do? Do you know how to behave? Are our children being taught that in schools? This is the entity that is supposed to coordinate all of that, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we really hope that we'll get the support of members to pass this law. This law will actually be very consequential. Senator Mutula, I'm sure, will go into further details of how we intend for the national and the county to coordinate and how there's coordination within the national level. But this is extremely important. And I want to thank our teams, you know, from both our offices, together with the Office of the Clerk, together with even UNODC and all these other agencies that came and gave us one or two ideas that we hope we've incorporated. We ask the public to participate in, you know, improving this bill. But let us then change how, as a country, we deal with disasters. Because it's talking about disaster plans, how you mitigate, how you even create a fund. Yeah? So we've not created the fund. Others, our noisy neighbors will say it's a money bill. But we've provided a provision for the CS through the PFM to create that fund, Mr. Speaker, such that, you know, when it happens, there's no lack of resources. And there are many ways to do it, Mr. Speaker, you know. If you look at all the levies people are being charged, and it's very terrible, and I've made noise about it in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, my businessmen today in stalls are being charged almost 10 different levies. You're told to pay MCSK, pay Prisk for music. But the worst, if you have a shop in Nairobi, you're being told to pay 4,500 shillings for fire license. But that 4,500 shillings you pay, you're just given a certificate. How will that help the fire? Even if they are charging them 4,500, then they give you a fire extinguisher for that amount, at least how does having a certificate help you in your stall here in on Moy Avenue? Because you paid and you've been given a document saying you've paid for fire. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. And Mr. Speaker, I will bring that issue of these levies in another matter because my people are now being harassed completely. I've seen women being bundled into these vehicles by KRA. Now it is KRA who is doing it because they have not paid 50 shillings at the market. But on this one, on a disaster matter such as fire, why give someone a document? You should make sure they are complied with it. In fact, if I find you with a fire extinguisher, my work is to teach you how to use it, to make sure you have ways to get out in case of a disaster. Many of the places where we've watched houses burning because of encroachment on the road, so a fire engine cannot even pass. No one is focusing on how to deal with that. And I thought my good friend and sister, Anne Kananu, who is now the acting governor of Nairobi, would have really put this front and center because she was the chief officer of disaster before she became the deputy governor. She was the chief officer of disaster. So there should be improvement in Nairobi, at least in that one area, because that's an area she knows, and she knows very well. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to give Senator Mutula time to second. With those many remarks, because I had also spoken last week, I urge my colleagues to please let us pass this law before we finish this session so that we can have a proper legal framework of dealing with disasters in this country. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you, Senator Sakaja. I call upon Senator Mutula Kilonzo.
Thank you. I rise to second this bill. Allow me to make a few disclosures. One is that Senator Sakaja and I agreed on this bill way before the handshake. Way before the handshake. At that time, the two of us conceived that the minority and majority can work together harmoniously for purposes of things like these ones, which are cross-cutting and help the country without necessarily looking as if we are fighting amongst ourselves. To Mr. Speaker, it's extremely disappointing that since independence, the country does not have a disaster risk management bill or act. Now, through this bill, of course, the ministry got itself working and they drew a policy, which of course was a knee-jerk reaction to this framework. And what is even more disappointing, Mr. Speaker, is that the country has participated in what you call regional conferences, where Kenya has participated in what is now commonly referred to as the Sendai framework, which was done in 2015. And Kenya has also participated in a Hyogo framework, which was done in 2005. Mr. Speaker, although throughout there in the general world, we pontificate that this is a matter that is close to our hearts, come to Kenya, Senator Sakaja will tell you, you have NSOC sitting in a different office, NDMU sits in the office of the president on a different floor, NDMA sits on a different floor, everybody has got its own command, and it's a typical Kenya thing that please don't cross to my turf. It doesn't help. Through this framework, Mr. Speaker, and through the work that we did with Senator Sakaja, we were invited. Unfortunately, Senator Sakaja could not come to the trip. We were invited specifically out of this to Brazil. The other one, Mr. Speaker, before I forget, is that this bill was proposed by Senator Sakaja and I before the Solai tragedy. It actually came in the process. This bill the initial bill was done in March, 9th of March. It's important because the handshake was in 19th. And then the disaster happened in May. Mr. Speaker, you can't even imagine. You can't imagine the things that I witnessed. And let me explain to you how we got into a place called Bromaldinho. Bromaldinho happened after Solai. And it was a dam disaster where a company which was storing what would be the industrial waste was storing them in a dam, which dam was concealed, and then they plant grass. It was overwhelmed and it broke, killing thousands and thousands of people and buried so many in mud. The committee went to the site on day 256. And on day 256, Mr. Speaker, we found people looking for bones. I witnessed bones being excavated. Myself, put in a polythene bag. They knew that they were not going to find everybody. But on day 256, Mr. Speaker, they were keen to ensure that no bone of a person would be left on that site. And the person and the company that got itself, the polluter, of course, was responsible, catering for every expense. This gentleman in Solai, Mr. Perry Mansuku, is a hero for nothing. He should be actually taking care of the expense of restoring the environment. Why is this bill important and the concept? It's not just the preparedness, it's post-recovery. Means you must go to Ofafa Jericho and sort of counsel those children. I'm a chairman of a school in Nairobi. And these boys became more clever than they should be and caused a fire in the dome. What they didn't realize is that as the chair, I installed CCTV and we watched all of them do whatever they wanted to do. It was extremely traumatizing to see one boy who was left behind. Now, this boy miraculously escaped that fire, miraculously. But the family was so traumatized, he was transferred from the school. So this bill proposes even post-trauma. One of the victims of the Solai Dam, this gentleman tells me, by the way, I lost my wife. I lost my wife, and my children don't want to live in Solai. Although Red Cross went and built homes, they don't want to go there. And this gentleman says, I became so dependent that I don't even know how to boil water. He describes it in such a way because of the trauma of losing his wife. Now, there was a report in Solai about two boys, one Kalenjin, one Kikuyu, who in the process of being carried were rescued by a tree stump. And they were just watching their family members and others being swept away. What do you think goes on through the minds of these young boys and Kenyans every time they're in Solai? It's part of the things that we are talking about. Senator Sakaja talks about hydrants. When we were growing up, there were hydrants in Nairobi. The idea of running out of water is like you're living in the Stone Age. Nairobi Dam was supposed to also take care of fires. That's why it's next to Kibera. We're supposed to prepare. There's no reason why the fire brigade is on Tomboya Street when the fires are happening in Kibera and Kikomba. It's illogical. There's no reason the government budgets 6 billion, 7 billion shillings is what they call contingencies. And when you have a disaster, you don't have an ambulance, you don't have fire brigades, etc., etc. Now, what baffles us, and that is why we are putting this, is not just the idea of putting government actors. We have put even non-state actors. Because there's the UN Disaster Management Framework Team, Mr. Speaker, actually sits in Nairobi. That's why Senator Sakaja had, and I got maximum public participation. They sit in Nairobi here, waiting. Now, the gentleman initially, and I must confess, the gentleman who proposed this bill initially in 2005, imagine this matter has been in the pipeline since 2005. The bill he proposed, the initial bill, was adopted by Ethiopia, made it law, and I met him recently because our children go to the same school. He has now been poached and works in Ethiopia on disaster alone. The second thing is a young man I met in Japan. This gentleman went to study architecture. He's from Nandi. He's now in his 40s, but he's an architect, but in charge of disaster in Japan. His work is to design buildings to take care of earthquakes. Sometimes it's just that we live by grace, that we don't have some of the natural disasters that are occurring in other countries, hurricanes, earthquakes, etc., etc. Senator Sakaja is right. Imagine somebody constructed a building that was leaning like the Tower of Babylon in a country where those things are not supposed to happen. The idea of a disaster management framework, Mr. Speaker, is to make sure you do not have a Kino thing, a Kino building, that somebody can construct a building that is leaning, you can see it, and the authorities have turned a blind eye to it. That's the purpose of this bill, and to put this in such a way that people coordinate. Now, let me disclose something else. When we went from Brumadinho in Brazil, we went to Rio. Now, there's something that happened in Brumadinho that has never escaped my attention. When this disaster happened, the people who were rescuing these people was available so quickly that a chopper flew into sight of the Brumadinho in Brazil, and you can Google it. Google the Brumadinho disaster in Brazil. You will see a chopper flying solo, rescuing a person who is stuck in mud. That's what Senator Sakaja is talking about. That helicopter was available possibly within 15 minutes. Now, if there's a fire in Ofafa, Jericho, the fire brigade comes after 1 hour, and it's possibly just about 4 kilometers. There's a problem about a country that cannot prepare for disaster. There's a problem about a country that doesn't see that it's important to have these things in legal framework. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, attempts to do that. There's training. Now, something happened when we were doing the Solai Dam. It has now come to our attention that the Kenya government, through the military, and I must say this on record, has trained experts on disaster. These people are trained in Israel. That's their training. So we ask the question, fundamental question to the cabinet secretary then, Waziri, why isn't it possible to avail your people to train disaster management in counties in a proper framework? Because these people have been trained using taxpayer. So we ask, how many of our military staff are trained to manage disaster? The cabinet secretary says this is a secret. How can that be a secret, Mr. Speaker? So this framework also anticipates that we need to train. We need to train people, young people. I was very impressed one time when I was invited to Starehe Boys. Senator Sakaja, I don't know whether you are aware, that St. John's Ambulance has trained a specific cadre of students in St. John's whose work is primarily to deal with emergencies that occur in the school. For example, the fires, somebody who has collapsed, etc., etc. If somebody had an accident on Mombasa Road, chances are that people would waste so much time trying to watch what has happened. I lost an MCA recently from Gu Masumba Ward in the notorious Mombasa Road near Salama. Now, I watched the people who were trying to gain entry into the car. Some were taking videos, others were trying to cut into the car. And I thought that if, in fact, they managed to get to him, the actions of those people on that road could have easily caused the death of that MCA. Because there was no training. There is no reason why along Mombasa Road, the busiest highway, the most notorious highway in terms of accidents, you don't have, one, a trauma hospital, Kenya government. You don't have an ambulance. None exists on Mombasa Road. Ole wako, if you have an accident somewhere in Salama, you will have to wait for an ambulance to come from Machakos, Makueni Mote, to take you to either of the hospitals. Chances are that even the process of waiting, you can lose your life. So, Mr. Speaker, this is ideally what we are supposed to, and I pray that we never get the sort of disaster I saw in Solai Dam, where, in fact, if it wasn't for the Solai, some of the greenhouses, if it wasn't for the greenhouses, this water was headed to Solai Secondary School, which is a boarding school. That's how bad that disaster would have been. But up to now, the gullies that were left by that water, Mr. Speaker, nothing has ever been addressed. And if you touch this issue, you will most likely get into Nakuru politics, because the owner is a big man, and the others in the national government who think this man is untouchable. That's the problem about the country not having a plan about anything. We don't have prevention. When it is happening, you have no control. And last, when it is recovery, everybody says, like the two cabinet secretaries who were supposed to come to answer the question of fuel levy, they go to a famous song we used to dance to when I was younger. It wasn't me. I don't know. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is important to that extent. I will not go into a lot of the details of this authority Senator Sakaja has mentioned. And it's important that I hope that we can get to firefighting, critical infrastructure, disaster, etc., etc. Now, Mr. Speaker, lastly, as I finish, the country is very proud of the sort of highways that the national government is doing on Mombasa Road. Now, nobody has factored in the construction of these roads high-level accidents, people flying from the road, etc., etc. It's not contemplated. And therefore, I hope that this bill and the people who matter can understand that even in the tough wars in Parliament, this is one of those bills that are people-driven. Take care of Kenyans. I have said this before and I must repeat to the powers that be. A government is supposed to, at the very least, even if it doesn't feel, to pretend it cares about its citizens. It is sad that Senator Sakaja has to use his resources, go to Kikomba every other time when there is a fire, when that fire can be prevented, when that fire can be taken care of. Now that we are having a drought, Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to have a series of floods in Kenya, and the cycle will continue. We'll look for a bus will donate food. In the case of Solai, the food was siphoned by the provincial administration for their own purposes, and since we censured them and we said they should be removed from office, they have never been removed from office. In fact, possibly some of them were promoted, I think. So, Mr. Speaker, I second this bill, and I hope that it will not suffer the fate it has suffered before, because I think that it's a high time. It's a high time that we not only prevent disaster, we must plan to deal with disaster when it happens, whether it's terrorism, whether it's floods, whether it's the locusts that visited us from Ethiopia, and funny statements were made by cabinet secretaries who don't understand what they're supposed to do. And Mr. Speaker, many other disasters that are not contemplated. I pray that we never have things like tremors in Kenya or earthquakes, because I watched, just like Senator Sakaja, I bothered to watch a documentary on 9/11 and statements by survivors, but even more statements by the people who, in the middle of those buildings collapsing, were running into the building to try and rescue people. It broke my heart, because I'd never seen the inside of that tower until just last week, when the documentaries were showing people who went into those places to make sure that they rescue as many people as they can. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support and hope, Mr. Speaker, that the country can adopt this framework that Senator Sakaja and I agreed to co-sponsor as one of those handshake bills that we thought would be useful for the country at the time. I support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senators. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Disaster Risk Management Bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2021, be now read the second time. Senator Rokorio Petronira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support debate the Disaster Risk Management Bill that is ably sponsored by the ever-energetic Senators Sakaja and Senator Mutula. They represent the future of this country, and we wish them well. They are able to see ahead. Mr. Speaker, I also want to congratulate you. It's the first time I'm seeing you on the seat as a Speaker. I congratulate you. I've worked with you in, I think, all the committees we have been together, and I know your capability and your commitment to work. You will do a good job, and congratulations. Mr. Speaker, this Disaster Risk Management Bill is a good thing that is coming in now, but should have been here as we were establishing government. Because, Mr. Speaker, risk or disaster has always been part of a community. And to imagine that there is no law that is specifically geared towards disaster or risk management is a sad thing. Mr. Speaker, this bill will seeks to I'll point out three things that it seeks to set up. The Disaster Risk Management Fund, which will focus on putting resources together so that when there is a disaster, we are not ignoring it or trying to set up ways of getting money, but there will be money ready or resources ready to have that disaster managed, to develop the activities that will help deal with that disaster and have minimal or no effect on the community and the people where that disaster has happened. Mr. Speaker, this bill is also going to set up the National Disaster Risk Management Authority, some sort of parastatal that is going to help coordinate or deal with issues of prevention, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery activities in case there is a disaster. Currently, Mr. Speaker, we have the disaster management as a unit, mainly within the office of the president, or what we used to call previously the provincial administration.
Honorable Senator Were Rokorio will have a balance of 17 minutes. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 22nd September 2021 at 2:30.